what's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz, Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, and this is a little bit different. Had to shuffle my week around a little bit, so there's no WWE last week this week, but I had to come up and talk to you guys about some stuff. I had to come and give you guys something, because here's the deal. I'm always cards on the table with you guys. My weekend is full. I am going to SmackDown tomorrow night, or sorry, tonight, as you're listening to this tomorrow morning. Looks like it's going to be a packed show. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then Saturday, I'm going to another Destiny Wrestling show, so there won't be a Collision review, because by the time I get around to watching Collision, anybody that has anything to say about it will have already said it. I'm going to do something next week as it comes to All In, but it's not going to make me popular, is it? The Destiny show, however, should be really good. We were supposed to be getting our current Destiny Revolution champion, which is their women's championship, Jody Threat defending against Impact's Deonna Purrazzo. That was pulled at the last minute, and I believe she's been replaced by Kylan King, who I've never seen live before, so still cool, but you guys know, huge fan of Deonna Purrazzo. Hopefully we get to see her eventually. But there's a fatal four-way for the vacant Destiny main championship, and it's Alex Kane, who I'm not familiar with, I'm reliably informed, is the MLW champion, but as you guys can figure from what I cover here, I don't really watch a lot of MLW. First time ever seeing Alex Kane, but his three opponents, not fighting for the MLW championship, but for the vacant Destiny championship, it's Alex Kane taking on Trent Seven, Lance Archer, and Big Damo, or Killian Dane, depending on where you know him from. So, three big fuckers slapping man meat, you know, doing the old Big E special, and this guy Alex Kane, who I've never seen anywhere before, let alone live. So that's what I'll be doing Saturday instead of watching Collision, unfortunately. I won't be doing a review of SmackDown because I will be coming back from SmackDown. It's at Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. So that's why you guys are getting this instead. So instead of talking about Raw and SmackDown, I'm going to talk about Raw and SmackDown. We're gonna quickly touch on some of the stuff that happened on Raw, and I'm gonna preview the show that I'm going to tomorrow night / tonight, depending on when you guys are listening to this. Some stuff that could be coming up. The one big thing we're all talking about on SmackDown, I'm gonna touch on that, but I don't really have anything else to say about it other than what other people have said about it. So, it is what it is. So let's talk about Raw really quickly. Kicked off with the Judgment Day without Balor. Once again, they pretend that they're all okay until Priest breaks character pretty quickly. He lets his frustration out. He talks about how Finn Balor should have been the champion at the pay-per-view. Talks about how they should have won their match last week. Talks about, you know, where is he? You know, if we're all supposed to be a team, if we win together, we lose together, where is he? They basically came out as a group so that Rhea Ripley could say, hey, let's not do this out here, let's do this in the back. Friggin' Finn Balor doesn't come out, but JD McDonough comes out and brings a message from Finn Balor, and the frustration shown by Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley is almost comical. The way that Kevin Owens gets himself exacerbated over like everything is how they got exacerbated, and it's not even like, you know, fuck off, we're gonna kick your ass. It's just like, dude, we're pissed off right now, get the fuck out. Dude, watch yourself. Get the fuck out of here. It's a bunch of that. He's brought a message from Finn Balor. Basically tells him, you know, don't focus on your issues with Finn. You guys are a group. You need to focus on, you know, common enemies, like his match with Cody Rhodes later. And then Sammy comes up the ramp, and even Rhea Ripley, when Sammy's music hits, like, oh, come on. Sammy doesn't even give a shit about the Judgment Day. He cares about JD McDonough, who's in the ramp, and they brawl, and his arm is still wrapped up. I don't know how he's doing anything. If you saw the state of his arm last week, they brawl on, and it's kind of funny because Judgment Day have issues with Sami Zayn. Obviously, they took out Kevin Owens in kayfabe. Also, they've taken out Liv Morgan, and that gets repeated in the story later on in the night as well. But they're watching on. None of them really want to deal with JD McDonough, and none of them have any reason to save Sami Zayn, so they're almost like amused onlookers as we go to commercial break. As we come back from the commercial break, it has been made official, so Adam Pearce is working overtime. Is he not? Sami Zayn versus JD McDonough is our first match of the night. Sami Zayn, because they're in Canada, they're doing Canada stuff. I'm definitely going to touch on that later. One-armed Sami Zayn is the story. Now, if you watch JD McDonough in NXT, especially not so much when he was in NXT UK as Jordan Devlin, But when he came over, they gave him this really like serial killer-ish gimmick. Oh, let me tell you all about the body and how all your joints and muscles and bones work and all that sort of thing. So for him to have an obvious target on his opponent, like the arm. Now kayfabe, they've made it so that JD fucked up his arm in the first place. So pre-planning and all that kind of thing. Sami Zayn, on the other hand, comes back, not to be outdone, with a one-armed Michinoku driver, which looked mint. Balor comes to ringside. Attempts to cause a distraction for JD McDonough, but there's a haluva kick and Sami gets the win. Finn tries and fails to rush the ring. They fail at a 2-on-1 beatdown. Sami Zayn gets the fuck out because he's a smart babyface, and Finn and JD are left in the ring. I feel really bad saying JD, because there's a really, really problematic member of our old wrestling community here named JD, and I never want to get the two of those confused. Now, immediately the story is, and it gets played out throughout the night as well, that, you know, they're all noticing that Finn Balor isn't there for the group, but he's there for his buddy. Like, where does his allegiances lie and all that. And especially later on in the night, when Judgment Day are trying to rally, they are trying to get back together, they are trying to have the old fist bump between Finn and Priest, JD comes again, and again, it's just Priest and Rhea Ripley not even wanting to, like, kick the shit out of him, just like, you really need to fucking leave, man. Because eventually, if this forms as him being the new member of the group, that's fine. But before that can happen, I think we are going to get Priest versus Jordan Devlin, and just the size differential between the two of them alone, plus the aura that Damian Priest has developed for himself on the main roster, versus JD McDonough, who has an aura, if anybody's watched NXT, which most people haven't, I'll admit. So a lot of people that are just seeing him for the first time now are going to think he's walking to slaughter if they set up a match between him and Damian Priest. But then you're going to set up a tag team match between Priest and Dom and JD and Finn. So I don't know what they're going to do with that, but I do think at some point we're going to get that, and it's going to be funny. We go to the back. We go to Chelsea Green, who is holding both women's tag team championships, and she's talking to Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce comes to talk to her about potentially vacating the titles. She says, no, you can't. I'll talk to your boss. I'll talk to the manager. I will talk to human resources. And then she does what she's been doing on social media, which is this huge, what do you want to call it? This Chelsea's Got Talent, this audition thing and whatever, while she's pitching this idea to Adam Pearce, and she's, oh, you could do it, you could put it on Raw, it could get some ratings for Raw, you know, let's do the hunt for Chelsea's new tag team partner, and if they win, they get to be my partner, but also they get to be a champion. Katana Chance and Caden Carter come up and say, you know what, as soon as you get yourself a partner, we'd like a shot at those titles, and then they get clocked off screen, and then Piper fucking Niven walks in, and she's just taken out both of them because they're tiny, and love Piper Niven, she's a fucking badass, but she ain't tiny. She walks across, she eyes down Chelsea Green and says, you're not looking for a partner, I'm your partner, and just takes one of the belts. And yes, this is fraught with storytelling you know, loopholes if you want to go there, but also the idea of walking up to one of the tag team champions and saying, I'm your partner now because I say so, is hilarious. Now, that's going to create a story for when Sonya Deville comes back. Is she going to have a match with Piper Niven where she fights to be Chelsea's partner again, where she fights for her tag team title, for her tag team title belt as if it's a singles title to get back into that team? That's a really cool thing as well. But I mean, Piper Niven hasn't been on TV for months. I love this. If Chelsea Green doing this Karen character now gets to walk around with a heater behind her like Piper Niven, that's going to be fucking awesome. And if the first defense is Chelsea and Piper Niven taking on Katana Chance and Caden Carter, it's going to be Piper Niven squashing both of them, and Chelsea Green screaming from the sides, doing the Karen thing. I really, really, really like the fact that they didn't just strip her of her title because her partner is out, because they didn't do that to Sami Zayn when Kevin Owens got hurt, and there's a bit of parody there. I really like that. They found a way around it. That's cool. Gunther and Imperium come out and they stand on the commentary table and they shit on Canada because they're in Canada. I think they were in Winnipeg. Which is why I mentioned the Sami thing earlier. Sami Zayn being legitimately injured, I think they brought him out for the Canada pop. I think if they were still in the States anywhere, I think he might have had the night off. Or he might have just done a quick sort of a safe beatdown on JD to set up for something later on down the line, but they want the Canada pop. It's fine. Again, we're going to talk more about that later. Gunther says, you know, as a European, he's happy to be in Canada, but he was sad to figure out that Winnipeg is the armpit of Canada. Oh yes, he addresses the fact that Gable won that awesome four-way the week before. He's his new #1 contender. He says, you know, look, this guy's got all the ability in the world. He's an athlete, he's a grappler, and all this kind of thing. But look at his career and look at mine. Look how long he's been here. Look how short I've been here, and look what I've already done. Sets up a match between Gable and Giovanni Vinci. I mean, it's I'm fighting you, so I'll fight your friend first. He beats Vinci. Quick win. I wish I could say more about this because Gable's awesome and this match is going to be awesome. They're not doing it at Payback, which is a bummer. They're doing it next week on Raw, if I'm not mistaken. They are doing it on Raw. I think it's next week. Really, really unfortunate that unless they're going to do a false finish and then postpone it to the pay-per-view, but that's a bit. I don't know. Normally, match to build a match is okay sometimes, but we already saw the match that these guys can have. The one they had a couple of weeks ago where it was the 5-minute challenge that got expanded out into a full match is enough to put that match on a pay-per-view, in my opinion. Gunther is irate that one of his sidekicks has just failed against Gable. Obviously, it makes him look bad. The mat looks sacred and all that kind of thing. So Gunther calls out Otis. And again, relatively short. Only thing I can really say about this is Gunther obviously got the win, but Gunther won with a powerbomb on Otis. Just saying. We don't need to build anything more into this. This is sort of anti-AEW. And like I say, I'm going to be talking about All In before we get to All In, and there's a lot of problems with AEW. They just threw a bunch of random matches together this past week. But this is kind of the opposite of that. Like, we've seen what they can do. We've seen how both characters have gotten there. Gunther with his title reign, and Gable from just generally being awesome, but also winning that cool four-way last week. This has all the build it needs. We know what Gable can do. We know what Gunther can do. Gunther's got the race to beat Honky Tonk Man's record. And I think it's kind of hilarious that when people get mad about, you know, certain things about Roman Reigns' title reign, oh, this person should have won, that person should have won, myself included, and they say, well, they needed to get him to 1,000 days. Well, 1,000 days is stupid, it's just a number. But because people apparently don't like Honky Tonk Man, they are desperate for Gunther to beat Honky Tonk Man's record. A little bit of pull up your pants, your hypocrisy is showing, going on there. In the back, Drew McIntyre is being interviewed. What next for Drew McIntyre? One of those super generic interview questions. As Riddle comes up to him and says, hey, you're my new tag team partner, and I've signed us up for the open challenge that the Viking Raiders have put out. And I mean, Drew first of all says, well, I guess I'll be your partner if you can't find anybody, and to which Riddle doesn't bother going to try and find anybody. And then they have the match, and I wish I could tell you something about the match, but I can't, because they're doing a really weird thing with the Viking Raiders right now. I am always hopeful that they are going to do the right thing with the Viking Raiders, because they're an awesome team when you give them a chance to get going. But we're never going to see the version of the Viking Raiders that we had in NXT. I just don't think we're going to have that again. We're not going to get TakeOver Viking Raiders ever again, because last week they did the open challenge and they were used for absolute steamroller fodder for the New Day, and now they're being used as I don't know what fodder for this new Riddle Drew story, and then they're forgotten because Drew and Riddle are in the back and they get approached by the New Day, and I don't know how I want to say this, but the New Day's new gimmick is they're dicks. And they get away with being dicks because people like them, but they're just dicks. When they returned last week, they shot on the state of the entire tag team division. And then this week, they have Riddle and Drew get this cool victory over the Viking Raiders, and they shoot on them, talking about how they're not a real team and putting them down and whatever. And, they're carrying around white steel chairs, which is, I'm sure, a reference to something problematic or that I will disagree with, but I'll leave that lie because I haven't bothered to look into it. But their gimmick is that they're dicks now, and I Not going to say Kofi Kingston looks like Deluxe Man on Lack of Sleep, but Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods, too, kind of look like Deluxe Man on Lack of Sleep. And if they're going to start being dicks, then maybe that's appropriate. I don't know. It's being thrown around there that the New Day are going to get rebranded eventually, as we find out more and more concretely that Big E isn't coming back. Big E not being able to come back is obviously fucking tragic. You hate to see it. I equally hate to see the shit that's going Ridge Holland's way about that, because nobody intends for shit like that to happen unless your name is Sasha Banks. But the Big E thing, the solidification of him not coming back might be an opportunity for them to say, well, we're not the New Day without Big E. We need to start being something else, and that's fine. And if they're going to turn heel, that's also kind of fine. But right now, they're doing the whole obnoxious, we're absolute dickheads, but you guys have to love us anyway, because that's the story. Kind of Young Bucks-ish in that regard, just putting it out there. What we got, we got Piper Niven earlier on in the night, who we haven't seen in a while in the ring, and for I think the first time, we got some Indy Hartwell. And Indy Hartwell's been involved along with Candice LeRae and Rodriguez as far as dealing with Rhea Ripley. We get a video package on Indy Hartwell from NXT, which is really, really nice. We find out that she's going to be facing Rhea Ripley tonight, which is a death sentence, let's be real. We flip to the back in the change room, where Raquel Rodriguez and Candice LeRae are trying to hype her up and whatever. Raquel Rodriguez is upset that she's still not cleared. I bet she gets cleared right before Payback, and it'll just be coincidental. And then we get Rhea Ripley versus Indy Hartwell, and Rhea Ripley kills her a whole bunch. Kills her so much that she's able to kill Candice LeRae on the outside just for good measure. Hits her with the Riptide. Ripley gets the win. And after the match, and this is not the first time I'm going to say this, after the match, the babyfaces do that oh-so-babyface thing of attacking her 2-on-1 and failing. I would, again, much like the Viking Raiders, I would love to see Candice LeRae positioned like she was in NXT. I would love to see Indy Hartwell, the way she was coming off of a roll just as her NXT run ended. I would have loved to see that roll into Raw. Now, I get that she left NXT injured and had to forfeit the title, and that wasn't the best way to leave things. But you can juice that back up. If the rumors of them bringing back the Way are true, then for these ladies' case, I hope they do it sooner than later. Put them in the tag team title picture. If they're not going to do the Way, that's fine. You've got the story kind of established. Candice and Indy are like teacher-student type of team, which is absolutely fine. Tommaso Ciampa, I should say, wasn't on this card tonight, but Tommaso Ciampa on social media has been putting up missing posters for Johnny Gargano. If this is how they're bringing back DIY, that's a really weird and not quite Tommaso Ciampa way to do it. As good a chance as any for me to say that the one thing really glaringly missing from this episode was Shayna Baszler, and I only say that because she got the awesome win at SummerSlam, followed it up with a really awesome match the following night on Raw with Zoe Stark, and I thought we were finally putting the rocket on her, so she was noticeably absent. Not saying, oh my god, why'd they remove her from the show? I know she wasn't announced for anything, and I'm not doing what other people were doing at SummerSlam, but a little interesting that she wasn't included in the show tonight. But yeah, Rhea Ripley kills Candice and Indy, and that's where we're at, because Rhea Ripley is a fucking star, and that's what fucking stars do. Michael Cole's in the ring, wants to interview Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke Nakamura comes out in a nice black suit, looking all cool and chill and whatever, asks him about the attack on Seth Rollins, and Nakamura speaks in a bunch of Japanese and eventually flips over to English to say, I want the world title. Seth Rollins comes out and gives him credit for the setup, and then does that whole babyface, but I'm really confused. I'm a fighting champion. You could have just asked for a title shot. I gave you your respect last week. Do you not think I would have granted you a title shot? But it's pretty obvious what you wanted, and now it's what I want too. The best way to get what I want is to give you what you want. You name a time and a place, and Shinsuke smiles and walks off. But not before dropping the microphone and whispering something to Seth Rollins that seems to really bother him and suck all the what do you want to say, charisma and sarcasm and flamboyance right out of his facial expression before hitting him with a Kinshasa, which is nice. I do think it was kind of cool when he did the Kinshasa last week, how he did one from the front, one from the back, almost a two-part like sandwich effect. If he does that going forward, that would be a nice, neat little tweak on the storyline. We replay all the stuff between Miz and LA Knight from last week. Miz is in the back yelling at Byron Saxton and saying he will be on Raw next week and he's going to beat somebody better than LA Knight. Okay. And then he pokes his head back in and say, oh yeah, and I might show up on SmackDown as well. We'll see. So, great for me. I'm going to be at the show. Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch, the match that everybody's been promised forever and ever and ever, the match that was pulled, as most people would tell you, from SummerSlam, even though it was never on the card. Show me a single announcement, show me a single match graphic, show me a single piece of promotional material that ever had Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus on SummerSlam. And I'm not saying this to doubt on either lady, by the way. Trish Stratus, my hometown girl. Becky Lynch is one of the biggest names in female pro wrestling. Put her up there with Charlotte, Rhea Ripley, Lita, Trish Stratus. Shayna Baszler's getting there. Ronda Rousey was there, whether you like it or not. She's up there. She really is. And Becky Lynch is fucking awesome. My respect for Charlotte Flair aside, Becky Lynch probably the best of the four horsewomen. Let's just say we're not going with Captain Forehead. We're just not doing it. Also, I'm all for people that don't break other people's necks. Yes. But anyways, Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch was not the main event tonight either, which people also freaked out about. But they reacted too quickly, in my opinion. Oh yes. Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch was Zoe Stark banned from ringside. Trish Stratus still has the mask on, and an early flurry by Becky Lynch gets her in the driver's seat. She tries to kick off the mask, and the match stops for a brief period of time while she has to put the mask back on. Trish takes over after that brief interruption in the match. Trish kicks Becky's head into the ring post, which is always a dirty looking spot, uses the mask as a weapon, like takes it off her face and like physically uses it as a weapon before the referee eventually confiscates it. Becky takes over again. Trish hits a spear. More Canadian stuff. So we had Sami Zayn, even though Sami Zayn's injured. We had Trish Stratus in Canada using the spear of another guy from Canada we're going to talk about shortly. Trish tries to bail. They brawl through the crowd. They brawl to a countout. The match is over at that point. LOL. So yeah, if this was your main event, would you have been happy? Probably not. They brawl up the arena steps into the concourse. They hit the merch area where Trish Stratus takes a small moment to pose in a Seth Rollins t-shirt, which I thought was a really nice touch. They brawl some more. They brawl throughout the merchandise cases until Zoe Stark finally joins in on the beatdown. The beatdown becomes a 2-on-1 beatdown. Trish hits a chick kick, and that's it. That's all. That's what happens as we go to commercial break. Coming back from the commercial break, Adam Pearce is losing his shit for however many times they've tried to have this match properly. It hasn't happened yet. It didn't matter banning Zoe Stark from ringside area because they just took it away from the ringside area. So next week there's going to be no Zoe Stark, there's going to be no interference, there's going to be no escaping Trish Stratus because Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch next week in a steel cage. Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. Now, the actual main event is Cody Rhodes versus Finn Balor, and Balor's out on his own. Cody Rhodes, I've never said he's a bad wrestler, so those of you that are going to call me a hypocrite can go fuck yourself. The match was great. Cody Rhodes, Finn Balor in the main event on Monday Night Raw. You're going to have a good time. Slowly, all the other members of the Judgment Day file out. They get their various shots in, they get their various distractions in, but Damian Priest once again tries to chuck the briefcase into Finn Balor while the referee is distracted. Comedically, the briefcase slides between Finn Balor's legs right into Cody's hands. And Cody, you know, super smiley babyface Cody Rhodes that wouldn't hurt a fly ever. By the way, cry, 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 remember who my dad is. He uses the briefcase to win the match. There is a beatdown. Damian Priest jumps in. Dominic Mysterio jumps in. Sami Zayn is about to clock them all from behind when that is cut off by JD McDonough, once again proving his I don't want to say loyalty to the group, but his attempt to join the group, and it's a 4-on-2 beatdown because, I mean, Rhea Ripley doesn't really do much physically because WWE are cowards and won't do intergender action, which is fine. We understand what it is. Even when they're posing afterwards, even when they're posing triumphant and totally pretending, totally faking that they are all right as a group and whatever, JD McDonough knows better than to get into the ring with them. He stands in the ring. The way they shot it was great too, because it's from the hard cam side and you see all of the Judgment Day posed, lined up and posed in the ring, and JD McDonough's on the floor just behind them, sort of looking up, like looking into the future. Either him and Finn are going to take on these other folks, or he's going to be part of that group one day, and that, you know, he's got the, in the worst way possible, because he's a devious heel, but he's got that twinkle in his eye, the twinkle of possibility, the twinkle of, you know, future perspective and all that kind of thing. Really, really cool way to go. Now, all through the night and all through the backstage segments and whatever, we need to Rhea Ripley, even more than Damian Priest, is like, you know, this isn't what we do. We're the Judgment Day. We rule together. We all have stuff. You know, I've got my title. Dom's got his title. Priest, you have your case. You know, Finn, you're going to be a world champion shortly. They always, that part of the comment always kind of drops off a little bit, but, you know, we've gotten complacent, we've gotten lazy, we need to find our vicious side. And I mean, a 4-on-2 beatdown with a little bit of help from JD McDonough on Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn, two of the people that are, for better or for worse, the most loved characters in the company, knowing that the other people involved can't come down and help. Like Liv Morgan, for example, who has an issue with Rhea Ripley, is injured, can't come out and help. Sami Zayn's tag team championship partner, Kevin Owens, is injured, can't come down and help. Cody Rhodes, you know, is finally trying to get himself back on track and back, you know, to finish the story, even though it's not a real story. Doesn't really have any friends at the moment, other than Sami Zayn, it would seem. He's got nobody to help him either. So it's not only the beatdown on the two of these guys, it's the beatdown on these two guys that have nowhere else to turn, nowhere else to look. And if this was a soft way to at least temporarily help the Judgment Day find their footing and get their grip back on Monday Night Raw, I think they hit a hell of a reset button here. Now, it's fake, and they know it's fake. And if you look at each character in that group, they all kind of know that it's fake. Priest kind of knows that he can't trust Balor. Balor knows that he can't trust Priest. Rhea knows that she's not going to keep them all together. Dominic knows whatever Rhea Ripley tells him. JD knows he's not really that welcome in the group as you know, as welcome as the other JD is in this wrestling community. So all five of them, and I'll include JD, all five of them know that things are not okay, but all five of them are aggressively trying to pretend that they are, and I think that's, in the short term, that'll be dangerous for anybody that faces them before they implode again. Now, one of them needs to get a world title. This is supposed to be, as the bloodline falls, the Judgment Day is supposed to be the new head faction of WWE. They need to get a main world title into that group at some point if they want that to be a thing. That being said, we're gonna switch gears over to SmackDown. It's been a while since I've previewed a weekly show. Now, one other thing I hope to get done this weekend is NXT Heatwave. Speaking of weekly shows, NXT Heatwave is one of their elevated episodes of NXT, and I will say they've got a hell of a card. They've got a card, and I'm gonna touch on this more when I do it. They've got a card there that I wouldn't be upset about them making into a proper PLE. Like, this is a regular, you know, Tuesday night weekly episode of NXT with a different name, kind of like AEW had Fight for the Fallen this week. And I'm not making fun of that. They did the fundraising for the Maui thing, and that's awesome. But it's an elevated episode of Dynamite. This will be an elevated episode of NXT next week. But they've got a card there that could be a pay-per-view. So I will be previewing that at some point. But as far as a bog standard weekly wrestling TV episode, I haven't really previewed one much on this channel, but I'm going to preview this because I'm going. Oh yes. Now the weird thing is, even today I went online, both through WWE and through the website for Scotiabank Arena, and the advertised dark match, you know, after the cameras go off and all that kind of thing, the advertised dark match for this is Sami KO and Drew McIntyre versus Imperium. Now, a couple of problems with that. Now, I know that the brand split isn't a real thing, but these are all guys from Raw. I know that they want to get Canadian stars in there because it's in Canada, but Sammy's kind of injured and KO is way injured. So I'm kind of predicting that they might stick Cody Rhodes in there in place of Kevin Owens and have Sami Zayn in there minimally and all that kind of thing. My thing is if they were going to bring in some people from Raw for a dark match, why couldn't it have been the Judgment Day? I want to see the Judgment Day. I'm just being selfish. It's SmackDown. I shouldn't expect to see the Judgment Day, but it is what it is. Now, what do we got to look forward to? Miz heavily hinted on Raw that he's going to fight somebody better than LA Knight next week on Raw to show LA Knight what he has coming to him. But he also hinted that, yeah, maybe I'll show up on SmackDown this Friday. So I'm fully expecting The Miz to come out and do some kind of either a cheap shot or another promo battle with LA Knight. And I'm going to be there live, so I have no problem with that. There's all the fallout of Rey Mysterio winning the United States Championship instead of Santos Escobar. Now, I had said, if it wasn't going to be LA Knight winning the United States Championship from Austin Theory, that it should have been Grayson Waller. Rey Mysterio, brand new United States Champion, is going to be on the Grayson Waller effect in Toronto, in the Scotiabank Arena, on SmackDown. So if this is going to start a Rey feud with Grayson Waller, that I'm all for that. If Rey is going to be the transitional champion so that we can get a title onto Grayson Waller, I'm 100% okay with that. It means that they're doing very, very different things with LA Knight. But also, I think they're going to want to try and play the hand that Rey and Santos are okay. Because when Rey basically took Santos' spot last week, everybody sort of got their fantasy booking hats on, which is totally fine. But it's like, oh, is this going to start sowing a dissension between Rey and Santos? If they want to push back against that idea, I think what you do, at least for the short term, not at the pay-per-view, but maybe the SmackDown before Payback, you do a tag match, Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar versus Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. Just putting names together, putting names in hats. They've already done the whole thing where Santos and Rey are able to compete with each other, and they're still managed to, stay friends, stay family, stay respectable to each other. So even if that turns into a fatal four-way, Santos was supposed to get his shot. Theory needs his rematch. Rey is the current champion, and Waller's the next contender. So they have a random fatal four-way instead. Totally okay with that as well, but Rey Mysterio and the Grayson Waller effect will at the very least set up something like Waller taking on Santos because Santos is sticking up for Rey's honor or something to that effect. It'll all depend on if Grayson Waller comes out to host the Grayson Waller effect in his ring gear or not, I suppose. They could basically do anything they want with the women's title situation at this point. Io and Damage Control and Asuka and Charlotte. Apparently Bianca Belair is taking some time off, and I just can't tell you how heartbroken I am about that, and I can't tell you how heartbroken I am about that because I'm not. Oh yes. If you want to do some like Asuka and Charlotte versus Damage Control, seeing as Dakota Kai can't wrestle, so it'll be 2-on-2, that's fine. I would really like them because I'm biased, and the first time I saw Shotzi Blackheart was here at Destiny. Check it off your Spaz Phoenix bucket list, it's fine. If they want to do the Bayley versus Shotzi match here in Toronto, I'd be 100% for that. Shotzi with the shaved head looks fucking awesome. Just putting that one out there. But basically any combination of any of these women not named Bianca Belair would be absolutely fine. And we got to talk about it. We got to talk about the rumors, more specifically, that Edge's match with Sheamus that he asked for last week, based on all the history between them and all the heartwarming stuff that they shared and whatnot. There is the rumor, and it's not just a rumor because it does kind of go with what he said after the cameras went off air last time Raw was in Toronto, that by the time he comes to Toronto again, he might be talking about his retirement. There is a rumor that Edge versus Sheamus on SmackDown could be Edge's last match. Now, as much as I get it, as much as I get, like ending it in your hometown, I think ending it on a random episode of SmackDown is a bit fall short. Now, that being said, selfishly, if I get to say that I was present for Edge's last match, that's a little cool thing for my, cool feather for my cap type of idea. But also, it'll be me there in person for something that's a real bummer. Edge came back at the Rumble and got a huge pap, as they say, right as we went into the lockdown, and that was the before time in the long ago, so I don't think this is the kind of run he necessarily wanted fully. I can't speak for him, obviously. I'm just going by what I've seen. He was fodder for Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan ain't even in the company anymore. So I don't know. I don't know if this comeback was everything Edge wanted it to be, and also that's not for me to ask, and it's not for me to say. So I don't know. The first time Edge had to retire, there's a very somber sounding Spaz Phoenix from like 10 years ago when Edge announced his retirement the first time, and it hit me then, and if I'm there for his second retirement this time, it'll probably hit me again. Edge is one of those guys, along with Jeff Hardy and that era of, tag team wrestlers, but then became mainstream, main event, main title, world title holder wrestlers. Edge has that very similar spot for me, and the hometown thing is kind of a cool thing too. So if this ends up being his retirement, I'm glad I'm going to be there for it. If he comes in and does a friggin' Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm not fucking leaving! I'd be just as happy with that, not gonna lie. That would probably get a bigger pop out of me. If he does a fake retirement, like a Mark Henry, I got a lot left in the tank, I'd love to see that too. But either way, it feels like a big thing, and people are saying, well, Edge and Sheamus doesn't feel like a big match, to which I say what I said last week. Sometimes you gotta look at it from how important it is to the wrestlers. I always use the funny example. I always use John Cena and Nikki Bella versus Miz and Maurice, how that match was not the top match on anybody's card that night at WrestleMania, but here are these two guys with their two significant others, and they all get to share the ring together, and it looks like they're all having a good time. I'll just be happy for them. This is kind of a much more monumental version of that, if this does end up being Edge's retirement. And like I said, watch your feeds, watch your X feeds, watch your YouTube feeds. I'll be putting up shorts and whatnot else from that show and from the Destiny show as well. I was going to say let me know how Collision goes while I'm at the Destiny show, but I'm still going to watch it when I get home. Anyway, so big old busy weekend of wrestling for me. Booked off Friday, booked off Monday. Gave myself a nice 4-day weekend to enjoy 2 live wrestling shows. It's not a bad life I lead at all, is it? This has been something a little bit different. As I say, this is your substitute for WWE last week, so I'm going to call this WWE in the middle of the week. No, I'm not, because that's really, really lame. The next thing you get from me will probably be the preview for Heatwave, and then I've got some thoughts going into AEW All In. Tony Khan's Big Bad Show. And that's what it is. Big and bad. Anyways, I've been Spaz Phoenix, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to you tonight. That's one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.